Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Interlinked, the official podcast of Neo Tokyo.
Huge shout out to our sponsor, Playable Games. They are inspired by gamers and funded by their community. They have a epic game on the Epic Games Store, a third-person shooter called Nexus. Hop on in there and check that out. They're also currently selling nodes, so if you're interested, check that out at their website, playable.games. That is a 3 instead of a B on Playable. Now strap in for the rest of this episode of Interlinked.
Today, we have Mr. Scott, Mr. Lewis from the WagMe crew. What's going on, guys?
What's up, boys?
What up, what up? Scott, I appreciate you taking some time off from your 1,001 push-ups per minute world record breaking existence.
Yeah,
well.
man. You know, I'm just trying to keep the Web3 space healthy. One workout vid at a time.
Boom. I love it. I actually do check out your workout vids, by the way. They're very helpful. So thank you for doing that.
Hey,
but
man,
as always,
you know, teaching fitness to the world, you know, is a big dream of mine. And I've got almost 1 billion views across my fitness channel, actually.
wow.
I'm hoping to hit 3 million subscribers this year. But now I get to bring gaming to the world with Lewis and the rest of the team and tell an amazing story, original story. And that's insanely exciting. It's like I've always wanted to do that too. So to get to kind of bring two of my passions to life, my biggest passions is, you know, it's the best feeling.
Well, I definitely want to jump into that passion, but I cannot ask the questions so you guys can tell the story without the greatest co-hosts of all time, Mr. Nick Cryptoetheus, Mr. Jared Bradley. How are you guys, sir?
What up? Doing good. Ready to dive into all things push-ups, Web3 gaming, mobile, all about it. So ready to dive in.
Let's go. Let's do it. Let's all agree that we're all going to do at least 50 push-ups after this podcast.
Nice. In a
Let's
row.
go.
No breaks.
Let's go. Let's go. Also, I noticed, Jared, that you have on your Whisperer hat today. Epic merch. We were talking earlier. Does that mean that you have to whisper throughout the rest of the pod? Is that what that means?
That's right. I have a nice, beautiful, wonderful microphone that we could just quietly whisper all of our thoughts. So might be great. We'll see.
We're actually LARPing as Crypto Gaming ASMR. So that's the beginning of that. That's the smooth intro to that section. Okay, anyways, let's jump in. You guys are telling the story of stories. You guys are building the marvel of Web3. Maybe Marvel's trying to build what you guys are doing of Web2. Who knows? But let's jump in. Would love to get the story. Would love to get a little foundation. Maybe you guys can give a little bit of background on who you are, a bit about the project, and let's dive in.
Yeah, Lewis, you take it up. You take it off, man. This is
All right.
this is your brainchild here.
I mean, listen, I hardly get on podcasts, so like this is gonna be one of my first ones, and I'm excited. So yeah, I'm one of
Yeah,
the
we try to
co-founders here.
keep Lewis only where it's voice.
Yeah, wait, it gives me more of a mystery, right? A mystique about myself. So that way people are like, man, there's this like genius behind the scenes, you know. So I try to keep the persona.
Don't worry,
But yeah, I'm one of the co-founders
we'll grill
of
you. We're gonna grill you.
what?
We'll make it really difficult, so every other podcast is really easy after this experience.
There you go. Yeah, give me some good practice here. So it's great being on the podcast, guys, and it's always a pleasure to speak with y'all. And we've been around for what, 3 years, just about, and yeah, so we've just been building through the bear, and what I guess yesterday it felt like a bear again, to be honest with you. It's like the bear just reared his head up again. But yeah, I'm one of the co-founders here at WagmiGames, Games, and I'm really the chief creative officer here. So a lot of the universe stuff that you see, whether it be the cast of characters, comic stuff, really the storyline, all of that really is my brainchild, like Scott said, and I really have a lot of fun just being able to create worlds. My background really isn't in that, but where sort of my world connected with the creative side of what we're doing here is, I was always the nerdy kid that, read the Harry Potter books. Like in fifth grade, I was the kid that read all of the series of books, Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, you name it, even all the C.S. Lewis stuff. Always a big avid reader. Read over like 100 books in fifth grade. So I've always had a creative tent. I just never had an opportunity to really express that until 3 years ago when myself and Scott and the other guys really got together and really saved a project that was pretty much dead. And we were thinking around like what could we build? And at that time it was more of like just bros getting together and doing a CTO, right? But it eventually became something more special than that, because I think what we realized is that there's an opportunity in Web3 to really create something special. And so for me, that was super important. And for the guys, it is too. They helped me to really juice my creative ideas too. That it's not just me. These guys are phenomenal. Scott and the other guys are just so good at just being good team members. And that's why we've lasted so long, is because we just run differently. We're hungry to really bring the next thing to Web3 that's really going to pop. That's not, let's just say it how it is. It's not a Ponzi scheme. That's not just trying to pull wool over people's eyes. We're not hating, right? We're the polar opposite of that. We want to build something truly special and meaningful that can really help onboard the masses and expose them really to like the benefits of blockchain, like what's possible with it, specifically with gaming, as well as being able to own your assets in terms of the stuff that you love, right? I wished that we could have more of the blockchain stuff with like franchises like Dragon Ball and Pokemon is now has a digital collection. So it's like those are the types of things, the types of value props that I really enjoy bringing to the world, on top of the fact that we're going to create the next Marvel in Web3. So maybe I said a little too much, but that's kind of how I view stuff.
I love the foundation that you set. Big fan of the Harry Potter series as well growing up. Used to go to those like midnight reveal parties when they would drop the like last book, dress up like a wizard. So I do think that those books are sort of the core. Harry Potter obviously being newer, but certainly like the Lord of the Rings, the Chronicles of Narnia, other C.S. Lewis, like it laid like sort of the substrate which so much of the IP was like built off of. So I think it gives like a super great base to be able to branch out creatively.
So maybe let's actually, because I think we're kind of like talking around it. Let's just like let's describe what it actually is. Like what is WagMe? I mean, we're like let's go directly at that first. Like, what is it?
Ah,
Give us a feel. Give it like yeah.
we were chatting as a team, I think yesterday, Lewis, and we were talking about how Wagmi Games, it started as a Web3 game, right? We are like, oh, we're gonna build this Web3 game, we're gonna integrate NFTs, token, blockchain, all that stuff. And what it's turned into over the last 3 years, especially over the last year, is an entertainment franchise. And I think that's what really separates us and differentiates us from every other single IP in Web3. And honestly, a lot of IP in Web 2 as well, especially on mobile games. Like a lot of mobile games that are making like we can show you guys some of these numbers like 50 million, 60 million, 80 million dollars a month are just a casual game, right? There's no IP to back that up. And when a game has IP to back it up, and you've seen it, right, with all the major IPs like Marvel and Star Wars, Star Trek, Harry Potter, all that stuff, when there's a major IP backing a game, that game can last, essentially as long as the IP does, right? And you can continuously put out more games around those same characters because people are playing those games because number one, the game is fun, and number two, they want to enjoy that story over and over and over again, right? And so that's what we're doing. Like, so our tower defense game, which is available, you can do our early test beta right now on iPhone and Android. You can download to your phone. We're injecting all of that lore, all of that story building, world building into our game through things like live ops, and the character descriptions and the character designs. So people have gotten to know our characters and had a chance to already start playing with them just from playing the game. And then of course, we have our comic books, we have YouTube's collectibles coming out relatively soon. We have an entire toy design that's ready to go into prototyping. We worked with this guy, David Varner, who created the Marvel Universe toys on that. Like, we're bringing to life an entire franchise, which not a lot of brands do it, especially with new IP, because of how hard it is, right? It's like you can make a hit game and then never make another hit game as hard as you try. Like we talked about this yesterday because I think Costas asked, he's like, how come all these people who make, hit games don't just like go make more hit games or work with good teams? And I'm like, how come Sir Mix-a-Lot only had one great song? I like Big Butts. Like it's hard to have a hit. And what brings a hit together, it's all the magic from myself and Lewis and Ian and Costas and Khaled. We were five strangers that came together. None of us have built a game before. None of us have built a franchise before. But a lot of us on this core team, very similar to Lewis's story, always kind of the underdog, super into comics, super into anime, super into reading, super into playing video games. Like you can't fake 30 years of grinding and reading and getting yourself fully immersed into all these different types of stories, and that kind of shapes your own thought process when you create your own. So like when Lewis says this whole universe was his idea, the only reason myself and my teammates can add to it is because we play and we absorb these same types of stories too. And I think now that we're an entertainment franchise, and because a lot of us have really good backgrounds in business and we've all been very successful in our lives, we know how to find and hire the right people to build the game, how to find and hire the right people to design the IP, right? And so it's just been an accumulation of all these different things that have turned us into like, a Web3 project that saved the rug token into this like huge, massive franchise that's literally weeks away from mass marketing. I mean, we're talking to the top two animation studios in the United States right now and a couple in Japan to get started on our anime feature. Like we're doing so much, and we've only been able to do that because we've been able to get along so well and just kind of work together to bring these ideas to life.
So I'm gonna share my screen because I really want people to get a I want people to get a visual. Can you guys see this?
Oh, that looks beautiful, man.
Yeah. So this is what I'm sharing. I literally just hopped on you guys' website. So like seems like this is like some of the IP. I don't know if you could see the mouse
Yep.
button, but like we've got the IP around here, and if we just kind of scroll through, like you guys have built out fully functional um mobile game. So maybe kind of let's go through the different parts of the ecosystem because I think like looking at it um visually is really really cool. So okay, so you started with mobile game, right? That was kind of the first product that hit market. Um Obviously, and maybe it would even be helpful to like define what does IP even mean, right? Because there are characters, obviously you could see like characters and comics and cinematics and story like collectibles and all these different things, but like it seems like you guys had a story you wanted to tell. What is that story? There's really cool art behind it. I've seen some stuff behind the scenes. I don't know if we can even show that, but like you guys have some really cool storytelling and like I would describe it as visually appealing photo and video uh just content that is just very unique that nobody else has built that you guys have
You
built.
know, that's a great question, Ben. I have a really good way to describe what IP means and why it's important, right? And I guess Dragon Ball Daima is a perfect example to use to people can relate to. Because I was chatting with some of my friends because it's gotten really really crazy. We got Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta finally being canon. We got Super Saiyan 4 finally being canon, which is awesome. But if you were to watch Dragon Ball Daima and you've never heard of Dragon Ball Z before, you would be like, "What the fuck is happening? Why who are all these characters? Why do I care? What are these Dragon Balls? Like Why do I care that this dude's hair just grew 10 feet out his back? Why do I care that that dude turned into like a monkey man? Like, you just, if you never watched GT or never watched Dragon Ball Z, you would literally have no idea what the hell you're watching and why you should care. But because you have watched those things, all of these moments became so much more impactful and so much more special, right? That's the power of IP. So like when you're playing WagMe Defense and you're building your team and you're like, Melcros is my absolute favorite character. I love her comic book. I have her U2's collectible on my desk. I'm gonna make sure no matter what that Melcros is on my team. And if Wagme releases a new skin for Melcros, even though I don't spend money on mobile games, I'm buying that skin because Melcros is fucking badass. And I want to make sure I have all her variants, right? That is the power of IP. That is why storytelling goes hand in hand with gaming. And as the game continues to mature, we can consistently inject new live op events, which are basically like in-game fun events, around the story that's evolving, right? So we actually just signed on to start working with this company that's going to start producing our manga. And we have our comic books, obviously, but manga is black and white, and you can create manga much faster. And then as the story continues, we can then put together really nice comic books. But now, with the ability to start producing, a 30-page manga every few months, we can now then take that storyline, inject it into the game, and create fun events around that. Whether introducing new characters, new weapons, new skins. And it doesn't mean it's going to be all these like events where you have to pay money. Like you need these type of events in your game to keep people coming back and logging in and playing even for free, right? So that's the power of IP. Because if you don't have IP, you're basically only relying on how fun your game is to play for people to want to come back. So
Well,
like,
and
yeah.
yeah, and I'll touch on the mobile side. I think, fundamentally we just see gaming a little bit different, specifically even mobile gaming, because um, you know, my philosophy is we need to create a game ecosystem where it's net positive for the ecosystem. And you know, me personally, I've just never believed in the Ponzi games. Straight up, it just never has been something I believed in. My background is in financial modeling. I actually did that for a living, accounting, financial modeling. So I never have believed in them. Now they're fun, like you can go play, like make some money. It's all great. But for us as a company, we knew that that was a short-term play, and we didn't want to like short circuit ourselves. And so our philosophy is IP really is the core way to attract net positive inflow into the ecosystem. Why? Because to Scott's point, when you have characters that you get to know, you learn to love, and that you follow closely, you don't really mind spending $5-10 to get the skin. You don't really mind spending $5-10 to get the new card, the new version of the card. I know I don't. I grew up in a time where Pokemon cards were like the thing, right? I was begging people for jobs, my neighbors, can I go throw your trash for $1 because I want to go buy the pack of Pokemon cards? That was me. And I had like 3,000 Pokemon cards when I was a kid. Just like it was just something that I loved to do. I didn't mind giving my money up. So I think in Web3, I think the philosophy needs to shift a little bit more the other way. Nothing wrong if that's your thing, if you want to do the Ponzi thing and you don't want to survive that long. There's only one who's really been able to do it, and it's Axie. But beyond that, I don't know of any other name that's really done it. But for long term, I think you really have to create an environment where you're creating IP that is so valuable that people just are willing to dish up their money. The second thing is being able to go ahead, Ben.
I was just gonna say, so it seems like if we break it down to the most basic component parts, like IP is just an expression of brand through content, like digital content, physical content, and it's kind of like the the emotional connective tissue to tie all the products together
Oh
within
yeah.
within a company. right?
Right.
Like, is that kind of what? Because that's kind of what I'm hearing. You guys are kind of like, I think you guys are kind of describing all that, but I just want to tackle it and like get to like
Right.
fundamental definitions of like what exactly is this thing.
Now tell me you wouldn't pay $30 for this boy on your desk right now. I mean, come on.
Well, I
I
think
think
you
you
have to
nailed it,
have
Ben.
that
And
emotional connection.
yeah, exactly. Because you've seen the Alien Emperor basically tearing it up in our comic on the game. In the anime trailer that we have, he literally spikes Melkros through her torso when he captures her. He's a bastard.
And
He's
here's
badass.
the thing, Ben. I think you nailed it. And I think also it's really hard, to really have a soul when it comes to IP. It's something that, in my opinion, either you got it or you don't, right? Because that's why you have the great IPs, because some of these people that created them, they just had it. They just needed the investment. They needed the right people to know what they were making. And I think we're in a very similar position. I'm excited because even yesterday, Scott and I were talking to the son of the creator of the Ninja Turtles, and he's gonna take a look at our stuff. So when people like this have approached us and we've had conversations, the resounding like in this echo chamber of Web3 is like there's hardly anything that's worth like a game worth playing. But when it comes to RIP, we show it to Web2 people, and they're just like, dude, this has a soul. Like literally, I've heard that from almost every big creator, whether it's Eddie, who created Command and Conquer, right? He literally, I had like a 3 hour call with him months ago when we onboarded him as an advisor, and he was helping us with some stuff. And he was like, dude, this thing has a soul. And we actually created the entire game design document for that second game with Eddie, because of that. And he was so excited about the characters, the environments, like everything that we had put out, right? And that's the type of stuff that excites me. I love talking about that stuff because to me, that's really where you have an opportunity to create $1 billion IP or franchise. And this thing, it's not going to be 3, 5 years. In my opinion, it's going to take us probably a little bit longer than that. And I'm okay with that. And I think that's once again one of those differentiators between us and a lot of other things out there is that we see this as our baby, and we definitely put a lot of love into what we build. I think it's evident.
So if we can, and I'm sorry, Jared. I know I've been hogging the mic, asking all the questions here, but like, so I think in any business, like you have to have a product market fit, right? I think with IP, that's shifted a little bit to a story market fit, right? Like, I guess my fundamental question here is, what is a story that you guys want to tell? Is it a story of optimism? Is it a story of hope? Is it a story like, for example, Michael Saylor, very easy to understand the brand. He is Bitcoin. Like he wants to be Bitcoin Jesus, Bitcoin Moses, Bitcoin Muhammad, all the ones, right? Like he wants to be the spiritual leader of Bitcoin. That's a very easy thing to see and to get and to like, okay, I understand it. Either I vibe with it or not. It's very clear. What what is that? What is that need that what's the problem you're solving through what story are you telling?
You want to take that, Scott? You want me to take it?
No, this is definitely a Lewis question. Well, I mean, I can obviously answer it, but this is definitely a Lewis heartfelt.
Somebody answer it.
This is definitely a Lewis heartfelt question that I would like to hear from Lewis.
Well, because I'm the one creating these characters, their backstories and all that, for me, fundamentally, I think it is a lot of being able to give the audience characters where they can see themselves being that character with flaws, good, bad, tragic events, all of the things that make our life so real. I really want this story to transcend and really get the person to, when they delve into our universe, to feel like, damn, like I definitely could feel that character. Like that was me at some point.
Even the bad guys, right, Lewis? Like when you can relate to a bad guy, the story is good.
Right. And I think we're doing that not in a very creative way because we're not just making it where people can personally understand, feel, empathize, maybe get upset with some of the characters, but also we're integrating very well a lot of like tropes when it comes to like alien theories, right? When it comes to ancient civilizations, biblical stories. We're touching on subjects and integrating those things in such a way where it just becomes part of the universe and part of just another leg of the storytelling. My favorite quote by the way, from Steve Jobs is that, the mind share of every generation belongs to the storyteller, right? The storyteller is the most powerful force because the storyteller is the one that sets the precedent for the next generation. And I believe that what we're doing here, we think big like that. And that's why we take such time and love for the craft of the stories that we're building, with all the products that you see. So, yeah, so we're really trying to tell a story where people can really see themselves in the characters, and I think can really self-reflect and learn a lot about themselves and their own journey.
Okay, so it's about reflection, see themselves in the character, reflect on that, and learn about themselves.
Yeah, I think that's a big piece of how I built all these characters.
What do you want them to learn about themselves?
I think what I want them to learn about themselves is that we're all a lot more similar than we are different. I think even in today's climate, so much polarization happens that um everyone has their like lines that they have from their favorite channel. And what I really want to do is break down those barriers. What if aliens invaded? Are we all that different? I don't think we're that different. I think we all have very similar struggles. I think we all have very similar tragedies. They may be different flavors, different colors, but I think at the end of the day, being human is a very unique experience, and I think that we could learn a lot from each other if we truly just had a conversation, you know? And so I think that's super important to me, is to break down some of those barriers, some of those walls.
Okay, so that's how we then tie back to, and I'm assuming this is intentional, WagMe of We're Gonna Make It. We're showing, okay, we're gonna reflect, we're gonna see characters, we're gonna see this polarization, we're gonna see how people, are in the content. We're gonna be able to resonate with that. We're gonna reflect, learn more about ourselves, and realize we're not all that different at the end of the day. We can still come together as people at the end of the day. And if we do that, we're gonna make it. That's the fundamental, that's the promise.
And
And it's twofold too, because WagMe, is we're all gonna make it. We've actually even taken full ownership of, it's the WagMe Defense Force, right? It's the World Alliance for Galactic Mission Intelligence. So even in the game and in the comics, we've now taken that term, and it allows us to kind of keep our feet firmly planted in our Web3 roots, but also like it's not that we're all going to make it defense, right? So just an interesting tidbit to add there, but you're totally right, Bet. And that's why Lewis is just such a good storyteller. I mean, that's what got me to join the project from the very beginning, was just, yeah, the game idea is great. But the story side of it, that's the meat and the potatoes. That's what really gets you hooked.
Now a word from our sponsors.
What's up, crypto gamers? Shout out to our sponsor, Myria. Myria is revolutionizing Ethereum-based gaming with its powerful L2 scaling solution. Think zero gas fees, instant transactions, free NFT minting, and more. Myria offers a suite of tools that are tailor-built for game development, including game-specific SDKs, a spec'd-out marketplace, Web3 spiked leaderboards, new AI super tools, and more. All this fueled by a fleet of player-run nodes that are a breeze to operate and pump out daily rewards for supporting the ecosystem. Plus, check out Meta Rush, the Battle Royale obstacle runner by Myria Studios, dropping very, very soon.
Now back to your regularly scheduled program.
And actually, I would like to even say, we kind of glazed over this a little bit, but Lewis was saying that whenever we share like the full dream with people outside of Web3, they get excited because they see. So like David Vonner, who is doing our toy line. I mean, when he worked at Mattel, his desk was literally right next to Mark Taylor, as the creator of He-Man, right? and he's been in the industry for a very long time. And how we got him to come on board with us is I literally DM'd him on Instagram, and I was like, "Hey man, I've been watching, the Toys That Made Us on Netflix, and I've seen you in every episode, and obviously, you're a toy creator, blah blah blah." I was like, "I would love for you to check out our universe," and I sent him our anime trailer, and we had a call the next day. And he was like, the way you guys are designing your characters and your universe and your story and your game, he's like, this just feels like, destined to be something huge. And then, as Lewis had mentioned, I on Monday or Tuesday, I reached out to Ari Friedman, who's the son of Mark Friedman. And Mark was the one who discovered, Ninja Turtles and then got the licensing to Playmate Toys and basically was responsible for turning it into a billion-dollar industry, right? And so when I reached out to Ari, I was like, "Hey man, here's what we're doing. We have comics, we have a game, we have toys, we have all this stuff ready to go. I'd love to pitch the idea to you and see what you think." We had a call the next day. This was yesterday. And he's like, "Send me your brand deck. I'm gonna put this in front of my dad." Right? I don't think he'd waste his time showing his dad our brand deck unless he saw the magic there too. So, we're really doing everything we can to obviously build in Web3 and help the space become successful. But like our focus has always been since day one, mass adoption. How do we build towards mass adoption? How do we get people who aren't excited about crypto excited to want to be a part of WagMe Games and then also learn about NFT ownership and token and blockchain and all that stuff? Even on the show, the next crypto gem, right? The first challenge we had to do was pitch our game and NFTs to people who knew nothing about crypto, and we won that challenge because we were the only ones that are building a game that it's focused on fun gameplay, right? And so it just makes sense. So yeah, our thesis has never changed. We want to do something really special, and everyone's invited.
And the timing is very cool on Mutant Ninja Turtles because they just got announced and dropped a pretty sexy trailer that they're breaking into the Activision universe and will be featured in Call of Duty.
I already bought the Raphael skin like over the
Let's
weekend.
go. And obviously, like Activision sort of took notes from the Fortnite model of bringing all this super exciting IP into their games. So curious if that'll be a strategy that you guys pursue. Like, I think you need to like establish the primary IP first to then be able to bring in like sort of outside IPs. But is this something that y'all are thinking about? Sort of open to Web 2, open to other like Web 3 projects? How are y'all thinking about it?
Yeah, basically like it's momentum that you need to build and not stop. Obviously, you have to be smart with where you're allowing your characters to be. Um, but I feel that a lot of different games have stunted their growth because they were not open to doing these sorts of collaborations, because it's like everybody watches Ready Player One and loses their shit because they see all their favorite characters, on screen, whether it was just on a pass by or part of the main storyline. Oh my God, like, Percival has the DeLorean from Back to the Future. That's so cool, right? Like, it doesn't take away from Back to the Future just because, he's driving the DeLorean in a video game. If anything, you're probably like, "Oh man, I haven't watched Back to the Future in like 5 years. I'm gonna go watch that this weekend." Right? So it's like you need to understand, and this is why I say like you can't fake myself and our other founders. Like you can't fake the last 30 years of our lives consuming this content. It's something that you either have done or you haven't. And so if you do have that experience and you have been consuming this content, what makes sense and what gets your audience excited, because you're also technically part of the audience. You just have your own IP now. And I spend a lot of time on YouTube and I watch a lot of these guys like Nerdrotic and um, his whole crew, Desparu, Ryan, all those guys. And they're always talking about like how Star Wars is fumbling the ball or Disney's fumbling the ball with Star Wars. They hate the Lord of the Rings that was on Prime. I didn't
Hey
mind
man,
it. So
I'm
the
gonna,
Rings
I'm
of
gonna
Power.
have I'm gonna have to push back on that. I love Lord of the Rings. I know they added a little twist to it, but it was good. It
Well,
was
Yeah.
good.
and
Look,
that's what I was
if
gonna
if
say, Lewis. I think they're being overly critical because they're
Yes.
so into the actual story and timelines, and that's what they're comparing the show to. But just watching the show as a standalone, I thought it was great as well, right?
It's more
But
Lord of the Rings. Everybody who's like throwing a hissy fit, shut the fuck up. It's more Lord of the Rings.
We
Like,
need more of it.
right, get over it. Like,
well, but that's again, like, that's that fine line, because I would like a world where Wagmi Games can attract, people who will want to be casual and also the diehards, right? Like, you don't want to piss off your diehards. Like Star Trek completely shit on their diehards. Doctor Who completely took a shit on their diehards and lost
Marvel,
that
Star
audience.
Wars. Like
Yeah.
clearly we've seen examples where it got like way, way taken out of like
Oh, 100%.
they got
Like,
way over their skis, but
yeah,
I'm
and
the
it's
first to
okay to
say,
deviate a little bit, but when you completely go off the rails, it
look,
makes zero
just gonna say
sense.
this. I can say this because I'm brown, I'm Mexican, I'm an immigrant. I'm just gonna say it like this. I really hate when they take a white person character who's amazing, by the way. There's some amazing white characters, all right? That's not bad to say that. They're there. And you try to turn them Mexican. I'm like, bro, you don't gotta do all that. Like, come on. Like, leave him white. He was a great character. How about you have some originality and make another character that happens to be Mexican?
yeah, like the whole point was that like we got so far off the mark where it really would have been like, okay, any character, their race doesn't matter. Then we sort of got to this point where we're like, just us switching the race or the gender of the character is enough to make an entire new movie. And it's
Yeah.
just, you know,
Well,
girl
by the
this.
way, I would love for you guys to go look at General Ficky, who's actually, in my opinion, he's going to be a very iconic Mexican superhero. I made him, and he's originally Mexican. He looks Aztec, futuristic, Aztec armor. Why? Because I felt like you don't have to steal from, like just make something original and people will love it. They'll rally around it. Even the white people will love it, right? Because
Like
now you're not.
David in Cyberpunk is like the perfect example. Like they just made a fresh character, felt super authentic. Now
That's it.
they had leeway with V obviously because like you could make V whatever you wanted, but instead of like switching out like one of those core characters, just
Yep.
building this whole authentic lore that actually like sort of resonates with the culture. I've actually heard the Cyberpunk Spanish dub is really, really good for that reason.
100%. And that's what I'm saying. Like, we need to get back to just being more creative and stop like doing this little switcheroo thing with races and all. Just stop it.
And
That's
one
my
quick
opinion.
question off the dub topic. Sorry, Ben, I saw you unmuted. This will be a quick one. Is the manga going to be available in Japanese or just English?
That's a good question. So we're at the very beginning phase of that. We have the contacts for localization, depending on where we go. So depending on where we want to really heavily push our marketing, we can easily localize.
Cool. Just kind of curious. I came back to Japan from Japan with a serious manga addiction. So I've been reading through One Piece, and it's really hard to get the Japanese editions, and I'm trying to learn Japanese at the same time. So just a selfish question.
Oh my gosh, man. Good luck. My
Well,
wife's
I
like,
wanna.
you watch so much anime. How do you not know Japanese by now? I'm like, because I'm reading.
That's right.
I'm not listening exactly to what they're saying. I'm reading the sub.
I do Japanese Duolingo and I'll do a few lessons and then I would watch the One Piece anime after. And the two of them combined, especially playing video games in that language, I'm a super big
Huh.
advocate for because you're sucked in. Because like when you're watching anime, you're just gonna read the subs, which is what I do. And then I'll occasionally be like, oh, he said Emoshi Roy. That means funny. Dope. But
He said
when you're
Nani.
exactly. Not me. But on the game side, you have to pay attention on what's happening in the game if you're fighting somebody. So it's a bit of a more immersive sort of like
Hmm.
experience where you can be like, okay, he clearly said attack because I went and needed to attack this guy.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I wanted to bring kind of what Ben was talking about earlier in the intellectual property. I know everyone understands that essentially it's a protection for an intangible asset, whether it be a brand for a trademark or whether it's the actual art or the words for in a copyright. I wanted y'all to talk about that in an international setting, because obviously you can have protections in one area, meaning say the United States or in the EU. What about when you go to other countries? What is your strategy for handling the worldwide legal protections for your intellectual property? And I want to, because there's probably a lot of people who are interested in that process and how to do that. And I think that would be an interesting kind of topic to go through.
So I'm not
Well,
I'm not a
well,
patent lawyer.
I was gonna say, Scott, that's actually one of the questions, Jared, that we were discussing yesterday with Ari, because they're very familiar with the landscape with having
Yeah.
licensed Ninja Turtles everywhere. That's one of the questions that we're dealing with actually right now. So we don't have an answer off the cuff, but I mean, it's something that we are already looking into, because you're right. It's very country specific, and international can get quite tangly compared to just domestic. So we are looking to tackle that as soon as we can.
I do have something I want to say though on that note. So like, you know, obviously if somebody is copying your characters and doing their own variants, like I mean like Dragon Ball Z, like you think all these people making all this merch have a license to make it? It's kind of like a free for all, right? And sure, they Dragon Ball loses out on money from that, but they also, how much more money do they make because of the fans have taken it to a whole new level? In fact, Nightmare Before Christmas, I don't know if you guys know this. Like they made that movie and it kind of like went away after it came out, right? And then the team who created the movie, I think it was Japan. Yeah, they were in Japan and they're going into all these like little shops to buy toys and stuff. And there's just like shitloads of Nightmare Before Christmas stuff, obviously unlicensed product being sold. And the movie had basically found like this cult following because all the characters are so cutesy, right? And so they were kawaii is what they call it over in Japan. So they were making all these characters and it started gaining this big cult following. And then I guess they took those toys back and they started selling them. But that's what kind of brought that franchise back to life, was because it started to gain this cult following. So it's an interesting. I'm interested to see what Ari is gonna tell us, like Lewis was saying. But yeah, it's like this balance, right? Of how hardcore are you going to be with your IP? Like, do you want your fans to support it and make their own stuff and take it to the next level, or do you want to hammer everybody and copyright strike every single YouTube channel that's using your characters to make videos, right? So it's like, yeah, it'll be an interesting road. And once we start going down it, maybe we can come back to that question and have a better answer for you.
Yeah, and also I think that goes to your other point of, inviting other IP into your game and taking your IP and going to another game. And I think, to me, the answer, like you're saying, is it only broadens the scope and brings more people in to say, "Oh, I've never seen that before. That's interesting. What is that?" And then get them to delve into it and learn about it. And I always thought, like you do, that it made a lot more sense to take that time and say, maybe this is unlicensed, but would this actually bring something back into us? And then at that point, if you needed to legally, you could go and, send a cease and desist letter and say, look, we don't want you to stop. We want to team up. Here's how we can do that. And I think that's something where a
Yeah.
lot of people miss that sort of next step. It's like, well, let's stop and think. Maybe they don't have a legal right, but why not give it to them if it's something that people want, and it would only make us look better to the public because we're not, oh, you can't use our IP. It's like, hey, anyone wants it, it's out there, because, like Lewis is saying, the IP that y'all have is basically looking as an inward reflection. So it's like, what does the company want to show and what do we want to portray? And I think that's an important aspect of it. And I
I
love
mean,
the way you guys brought that up.
well, you could even have a style guide. I mean, we have style guides, and you contact person like, hey, we saw what you're doing. We don't want you to stop, but there's going to be, some legal stuff here. Also, here's a style guide so that when you're presenting these characters, this is how we would like them to be presented and portrayed, right? So or, maybe you have a brain session. Maybe what they're doing is gaining a lot of momentum. And maybe we want to take some of those ideas for ourselves, right? So there can also be a kind of a back and forth thing. Another big thing that we're focused on too is working very closely with creators. In fact, we have a lot of big name creators, especially even in the Clash Royale community, and big YouTubers in general, where, um, once we start really pushing our game and doing our mass marketing, I want to create, like downloads for their communities. So I'm like, hey, here's the Neo Tokyo banner and the Neo Tokyo emotes that you can spam while you're playing our game, right? Like the when you're dogging on somebody, when you're beating them, you can do like the crying emote and stuff like that, right? So it doesn't even have to be like an in-character game, or a specific character in the game or skin, right? It can literally just be like these fun things that create like a community around maybe your guild or your clan, right? Oh yeah, everyone who plays Wagmi Defense, make sure you use the Neo Tokyo badge and you use these emotes when you're playing so everybody knows which community you're a part of. And that's step
Scott,
one, and that's easy.
Scott, I would really like to have a board push-up emote so they know that they were so easy to beat that I could do push-ups because I was bored from kicking their
And
ass.
even like one-handed is even like more trolly, right? Like just
Yeah.
not even two hands, one hand.
No-handed push-ups.
You could have one that's just words. It says like, "You there, bro?" With a question mark.
Yeah, yeah. I actually, okay, so this may take us on a different tangent, but I actually think things like that spark the competitiveness and the rivalry, I think that's a lot of the fun, right? Like
Yeah.
it's being able to talk shit or like smack talk people while you're playing, even if you lose. Oftentimes it's still worth it because like it raises the stakes, it gets the people pumped, and it creates moments that people who are watching in the audience, they're going to appreciate because they're going to get fired up about it. And like I think we're moving in a direction where if you don't get streamers creating content about your game and like Twitch streaming it or X streaming or whatever, YouTube, Facebook, whatever, if they're not streaming it and bringing other people in to watch and consume, like it's gonna be hard to. I think it's gonna be hard to succeed. I mean, there's definitely like classic games that do, but a huge vector of attack to get a community is to have streamers play the game. But you have to have those moments of, okay, why would I want to stream this? And the streamers want to be able to grow their community by streaming the game. So you got to
Yep.
have those moments for them there. I think that kind of like
And
speaks out.
We had a
and
lot of
Scott
those
and
moments
I,
last night. I
yeah,
actually
no, and
posted a
Scott
clip.
Scott does an amazing job. Like every time I watch the streams, I'm like, these guys are always on point. Like they're having fun. They're like trolling each other. Like that's what it's about. Like that's what gaming really is about. And for me, I just love watching people game. It's kind of weird, right? Like who would have thought like one day we're gonna watch people play games and it would be fun. Like, but it's a thing, right? And to me, actually, one of the biggest gold mines is TikTok still. Scott and I, uh, we already recruited, let's just say one of the top Clash players with millions of followers. You might be able to decipher who it is, but we're about to really push the envelope on like the streaming and the influencers and all that. And one of the things kind of tying back to IP is that we have such a cast of characters. It's diverse, and not the woke kind of diverse, but just diverse. Like they have really cool different stories that I can pitch one of these characters to so many different influencers. They're on board like automatically. They're like, yes, the Mexican one. There's about 10,000 influencers. I already recruited like a pool of them, and they're excited. They're like, dude, that Aztec futuristic warrior, that's my culture. Why would I not push that? Right? So our marketing strategy, I think, has a lot of genius that's tied to our IP, and I think it's very cohesive. And I'm just excited to see like what's going to happen because these influencers are so excited because they love the stories. Yeah, I wasn't really expecting for that to happen, but I mean, it's very powerful storytelling. Once
Well,
again,
you touch on a good point of like have multiple entry like on ramps for people to emotional on ramps for people to care and give a shit
right?
about it and be able to see themselves in it. And I actually think you brought up an interesting point of like not the woke stuff, but having multiple. Okay, maybe let's tackle that real quick. If you have a group of people, like let's say you have three people, all three people, they think the same way. They're going to continue to become more extreme in that viewpoint over time, and they're going to veer towards one polarized side. But if you have two people who think on one side and one person who thinks on the other side, that will naturally center that group of people. It's just proven
Right.
by psychology. And so
Right.
it's important to like have multiple perspectives. That's also why, as a human being, we should probably have multiple inputs of information so we don't become radicalized towards one side. And then
100%.
through that, you also get a lot of interesting opinions. And, you know, if your goal is to have multiple on ramps for multiple types of people to bring everybody together, well, it's kind of hard for everybody to like resonate with something emotionally if there's not something that they can see of themselves in it. Right. So, like,
Exactly.
I definitely think that like the whole woke thing got really extreme, but the
I think
initial
there's a balance.
seeds, the
Yeah.
initial seeds of where that came from, I think there are some nuggets that could be extracted from that and implemented in an intelligent way that's actually like net positive to whatever the project is.
100% agree. And here's my philosophy on it is one of the things that I've done in my life is I think my forte is really being objective and centered in the sense that I'm always willing to be wrong, right? Like I for sure have my convictions, but I don't mind questioning them, and I don't mind you questioning them. I think it's very healthy to have everything questioned, actually. That's how you develop, to me, as a more balanced human being, and you're able to understand the world, understand people a lot better. But um, sort of like what I saw the opportunity here specifically is for the Latino sort of like person that doesn't hasn't really had a superhero that's been like Marvel big, right? I see that window of opportunity. The Hispanic market's actually 30% of America now is Hispanic. And I'm seeing this from afar, and I don't see anybody really getting in that pocket. And
Oh,
I'm just
that's
like,
fascinating. So you're almost seeing different segments of the population as different target markets, and
there you
each
go.
superhero or character is like a product that can go and address
Yes,
that particular market.
you got me, dude. That's exactly it. It's exactly what I'm doing with these characters.
That's
And that
fascinating.
pocket is so untapped. I'm gonna tell you, dude, I know my community so well. They'll get behind this character and they'll say, finally, we have a superhero. And they will all talk about it and they will all buy my stuff because they understand that I'm a Mexican immigrant myself. I understand our culture and I know how to infuse who we are into a character. So when they see him, they see them, right? And it's very powerful, especially for our community now that's sort of like with the whole polarization of like, the immigration thing and all that. I don't like to get political so much with my business because I don't think it's good for any business. But I think there's something there to be said about that specific subgroup of the population feeling very strongly about their culture. My culture, I feel very strongly about it, and that's one of the angles that, without politicizing, I'm going to say, here's someone that represents us. Why don't we make him famous? Why don't we just buy his stuff? Why don't we? And I'm telling you, it's going to work. And I have a whole bunch of accounts on TikTok. We have millions of followers who are already telling me when. Tell me when to press the button. And we're
Well,
almost
I
there.
think
So
I think a big part of that is like those who can unite other people, especially in moments of lack of unison, whatever the opposite of that is. I can't think of the word, but you guys get what I'm
Well,
saying.
the
That's a
story
superpower.
the story takes place in the year 3022. There's only like five major cities left in the world, right? And so the story itself is like the human population has been decimated, and so all these different cultures and backgrounds and people have to come together in order to, be safe and then obviously fight off the alien invasion, right? So you're seeing this injection of all these different people and cultures coming together, and the we're all going to make it, but World Alliance for Galactic Mission Intelligence. But that's the underlining theme that Lewis had brought to life here was, hey, there, the world is kind of like changed a lot. It's not safe, and as these five major cities, and so everyone who's left alive pretty much had to go, and that's where they live.
come to
Rock
understand each
on.
other.
So, guys, we have literally 1 minute left on the pod. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. Um, anything that we didn't cover that you can cover in 60 seconds or less?
Scott.
Yeah, just hey, you want to join the community? The game is live. Download on iPhone or Android. Type in WagMe Defense. Join our live streams. Have some fun. get involved with the community. And yeah, I mean, if you wanna be a part of the next big franchise, you found it.
Let's go, baby.
And just remember, everybody, if you go and challenge Scott and you beat him, he will do 1,000 push-ups on stream live for you. So
I might
really
mix it
fun.
in with like sit-ups just to kind of have some balance.
Perfect. You
Yeah.
don't want to be chicken legs, Hulk top. Anyways, guys, really appreciate it. Scott Lewis, thank you. Greatest co-host of all time. Jared, Nick, Cryptoetheus, Hogshead. I said that in reverse, so you guys will figure that out. But you guys are the best. Everybody who's watching and listening, thank you very much for being a part of this. We really appreciate you guys and gals and robots and chickens, whatever's watching and consuming this. We love you guys, and we will see you on the next episode of Interlinked. Bye-bye.